Well, welcome to episode 6 of the Wild Rivers podcast. Today, Mike and I are going to unpack a little adventure we had a couple years ago and some of the lessons we learned from it. So, Alaska 2023, how did that come to be?
Yeah, that started in 22. I was invited to go up there with some friends, and we went up to the Dalton Highway, just north of Fairbanks, rented a pickup, spent about 11 hours driving north on a dirt road.
You learned some lessons from that.
It was an awesome trip. I'm really thankful for the opportunity, but also was able to make some contacts up there in Dead Horse, which is the furthest north.
I think we should back up one thing.
Okay.
The mission of Alaska was a caribou hunt, and it was in the northern part of Alaska, Dalton Highway. And you went in 22 with the original group, and we got to go the next year in 23. So
right. So after building all that, or learning what I learned there, you and I were hiking a local mountain here, maybe in the fall, and I was kind of just.
I think we started talking about it right before you left. I think
it?
You told me about the adventure you were getting to go on. I've always wanted to go to Alaska. So anyway.
Yeah, and I just remember having the conversation, and you saying, "Man, I'd love to go," and I was like, "Well, get physically fit enough to go, and we will go." And then you made it happen, and then we made a plan. Went for it. What was it? 10? Did we schedule 10 days?
I think it was 8.
8 days.
8 or 9. Because I remember it was all my wife's birthday. We scheduled to leave like the day after. It was all contingent on me not missing that.
Yeah. That was. I was really excited to go, of course, but then doing a cold plunge, I was out working in my garage or something and threw my back out like 3 days before we were leaving.
Yeah.
That really threw a wrench in the trip. Luckily, you were able to kind of cover some of my shortcomings on the packs and stuff.
Well, when you think about it, when you go, this was all new to me. So like some of this is still pretty fresh in my mind. Like when you're getting on an airplane, you got to take everything with you in a couple of bags. So it was a whole new experience. Like when I would go on most of my trips, like in the lower 48, I'd have a truck and a trailer and all this space. And I probably spent a month, and I don't want to admit how many hours I probably nerded out with a scale and a backpack trying to figure out how to fit everything I wanted to bring. And then trying to figure out how I was going to get it on an airplane in basically a bow case and a backpack. Yeah. So, going for 10 days, and we did learn one lesson, you learned it, which was to ship some stuff ahead of time.
Yeah, that was definitely, that was very helpful. Having all of our food head up ahead of time, and then having somebody to receive it up there is a big deal.
That's the problem. You got to befriend somebody. Contact.
And my buddy Scott up there, super thankful for all the help.
Oh, if it wasn't for Scott, our trip would have been
a disaster. I mean, logistically, that was huge. Just having somebody there to take a package, hold a package, and then give us a place to just reorganize for a minute. And so,
but I still remember the feeling of adventure just vividly, just getting to the airport, grabbing stuff, and going, okay, I'm headed to Alaska, middle of nowhere. Like we're flying into Prudhoe Bay. There's nothing there, Dead Horse, and it was just like the adventure to me. I wasn't even that focused on the trophy aspect of hunting. I was focused on this is going to be amazing. The adventure. I can still taste that part of it.
Yeah, the thing that I think I was most excited for was getting to, or knowing that we were going to go into the backcountry of the Brooks Range, hunting caribou, but in a way, kind of doing an economical caribou / sheep hunt. Even though we weren't hunting sheep, we were in sheep country.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the focus, was to hopefully find some caribou where, at the foothills of the Brooks. Yeah. And the Brooks are some of the most amazing mountains. I hope to make it back to them someday and actually hunt sheep. But anyway, that was quite an adventure. And I mean, kind of jumping forward, once we were there and we were shuttled south about 100 to 150 miles, somewhere in there, and then took off. And I mean, I'm you had everything. You literally packed everything. I had probably 20 pounds on my back because my back was half out. I mean, I was limping around. That was rough, but
yeah, it was just the idea of going in the backcountry. I mean, we got dropped off basically 3 hours in the middle of nowhere off the highway, and we're like, there's a mountain up there we can barely see because it's all fogged in and stuff.
That's right.
We're headed up there. And I remember we crossed that first creek, which I thought creek, and then I looked at it, I'm like, that looks like a river.
yeah,
We crossed through there, and we went up, and I don't even think we made it that far that first night. We only made it in.
well, remember we got cliffed out.
Oh yeah, you tried to kill us.
I tried. Yeah, it's my fault. I mean, so one thing I've learned about that country is walking on the the infinite waterbed of tundra sucks.
Yeah.
Staying on some rock ridges just makes walking normal. And so we thought, hey, let's head up this ridge. I thought, head up this ridge. We'll get on this ridge line, and then we'll just get on top of the mountain and head for 5 miles in. That was our goal, right? To eventually get to 5 miles in, because just to kind of explain, it's archery only from the road to 5 miles off the road.
Yeah, that's the whole pipeline rules. So on either side of their highway, 5 miles from center line, basically, and all the mapping systems have it nowadays, which is cool. Show you exactly, but your archery and then rifle outside that.
Yeah, and not that we were primarily focused on archery hunting, but we brought a rifle just so that we didn't feel the need to maybe put a stock on a caribou that maybe we would rather wait, you know. So in a pinch, if we still wanted to tag a caribou in the last day or two, you know, it's not super challenging to get within rifle range if it's legal to shoot them with a rifle. So we wanted to be right on that line where we could, you know, not have to walk too far off the highway and pack a caribou back, but at the same time go, hey, you know.
So we decided to walk up and over a 2,000-foot mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was nice and easy.
Got cliffed out. Anyway, that and then I mean, that really was scary. That was probably one of the two or three times that I've had somebody get cliffed out to where I was actually scared. Like I was really concerned, like to the point where I had contemplated just taking my pack off and just letting it just go to the creek and break whatever it was going to break, because you know, you start tumbling on a cliff, bad news. Luckily we worked it out.
Fortunately, we didn't get too far up before we discovered our mistake. I mean, we weren't that far up, but one of the other adjustments, you know, that, you know, you get up there and there's like 2 hours of dark. It's like 22 hours light, couple hours of dark. So we're doing this, we're getting cliffed out at like 11 o'clock at night or something like that. We'd already gone on, a couple hours of sleep for the last 36 hours or whatever. So I will say that when we first pitched the teepee, and that tundra, that soft, soppy tundra makes a great bed. You throw that. But anyway, so we ended up that next day, we went in a little bit further, but then we got fogged out. Like we couldn't see anything. We were kind of stuck. We got wet. It froze. Like that was a pretty miserable first 24 hours or so. And then the next day it opened up and we were able to get to our destination. And then would you know it, we saw like 2 caribou 20 miles away. So we're all 30.
I mean, it was as far as you could possibly see.
Yeah, so we're up 2,000 feet from the valley, or from the floor, and it was like tiny little black dots out
just
there.
Seeing some dots in the furthest distance, going, okay, are they actually coming our way? And we decided that they were, but they were still a couple days away.
Yeah,
technically. I mean, that was quite a deal. Remember all the sheds up there?
Yeah, it was.
There were so many caribou sheds. It was, I mean, it was hard walking by them all because, you know, but what are you going to do with them? I mean,
it was like every 30 feet there was another shed.
Yeah, there was.
But
it's really neat.
But to put it in perspective, like we're sitting on the edge of, I guess, this mountainside, this Brooks Range, and we have, like, from our teepee, we have a view that's like 280 degrees of just nothing but expanse. Like it was cool.
Lakes and
rivers and lakes,
rivers,
and everything.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many hours we glassed.
A couple days.
And somewhere in there, you made a discovery.
So that was the highlight of my trip. We're looking towards these lakes, and I see what I think is either a wolf or a coyote. I'm like, man, Chris, either that's a wolf or a coyote. And I'm looking at it in my 15s, and and I told you, I said, hey, howl at it, and you just laughed. You're just like,
I totally laughed. I'm like,
I think you thought it
that
was
thing's 3
kidding.
miles away.
Yeah, we looked on our mapping, and it was 3.5 miles. I remember, or 3.25 or something right in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was like, well, we got nothing else to do. We've been here for 2 or 3 days or 4 days already. Let's howl, see what it does. And so I think you were in the glass.
Yep.
And I howled as loud as I could, and you said, well, he lifted his head up. And I was like, okay, well, I'll howl again.
Yeah.
Howled again, and he just instantly stood up, ran down the hill, roused up another wolf that we didn't know was there.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a speck.
Yeah.
Legitimate 3.5 miles away, because we had the only 2 lakes in that direction, and he was sitting right between them.
I mean, there's huge lakes and a river and miles of tundra like in between us. I mean, it's out there. And I was in disbelief. First off, I thought you had practiced howling because it sounded like really good.
Yeah.
Like I tried to howl once and that was pathetic. But what I couldn't believe was when that second wolf, I'm like, okay, they heard it. It caused them to get up. They're just gonna meander out and go back hunting or something. I'm like, if they cross the river, I'll believe that they actually heard us.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what was it? 15 minutes, 20 minutes later, popped up out of the river.
Yeah, it took them about 10 or 15 to get to the river. And I just remember it was a 45-minute call.
Yep.
So for 45 minutes, we're watching these wolves make their way our way. They probably caught at least 2 mice on the way.
Oh yeah, they stopped and ate a few mice and laid down at one point and sat there.
And then we howled again, and then they picked up and kept on coming.
It was the wildest experience of just watching it closer and closer. And I don't remember how far they were, maybe 2 miles away when we realized we needed to move because we weren't really in a position to get a shot.
Yeah, that's right.
So we had to lose like 1,000 feet of elevation, kind of down a rock face.
Well, and to be, completely transparent, we were standing on the line and we were like, okay, if they are on this side of that creek, we're good.
Yeah.
Keep them on that side of that creek and we can kill them.
Yep.
Otherwise, they end up getting too close and circling you and then catching your wind, and
we would have been archery only if they would have circled us too.
That's right. So, 45 minutes later, couple shots after that, dead wolf.
Well, the cool thing was, they disappeared at like 3/4 of a mile away, and we just got ready because we're like, they're going to come out somewhere because they disappeared behind this knob. We kind of had this canyon that we knew they were going to probably pop into, and they popped out not where we expected, but like mid-slope.
Yeah.
And like you said, a couple shots later, 400 yards, we ended up with a wolf. Which the cool thing about this, we're on the plain, and he goes, "Hey, in Alaska, you can put your caribou tag on a wolf." And you just randomly said that. You had been reading or something. Yeah. And I was like, oh, whatever. That would be, we're not going to see a wolf.
Yeah.
That's
in hindsight, I wish I would have bought a wolf tag.
Yeah, that's a lesson. If you go to Alaska, spend the $100 on a wolf tag because you put a $650 tag on a wolf that you could have spent $100 on.
Which I'm fine with. I mean, just to have the opportunity, I was pretty thankful for.
But that was the wildest experience I'd ever been a part of in a hunting situation, to have that much time, but also to be able to see it all play out. Like looking through the glass, seeing the animals react and respond to the calls. They were doing dog stuff, just goofing off. And the interesting thing when they came in there, and we'd noticed this, or you'd noticed this from your previous year, there was not near as many sheep or goats in that country.
Yes.
And we came to find out, talking to the biologists later, that area, they really wanted those wolves taken out of there.
It was
a priority.
They shut down sheep hunting on that side.
Yeah, so the Alaska Fish and Game was happy when you came in with that wolf from where it was. Like you had done the sheep and goats a favor. Right.
Yeah, the year prior I had seen several sheep in that range, just glassing them from a few miles away. And then did we see any sheep?
We saw 2 goats. On the way out.
Yeah.
On the way in, I mean, it was so foggy for
That's
so much of it. I don't know what we scared out of there.
Yeah. And a kind of a side note, after this all took place, I talked to another friend who was actually headed up 2 days or 3 days after we returned. And I told him the story, and I said, buy a wolf tag.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know, the exact same thing happened, and he was in that same area.
Was,
he howled a wolf in, and he only saw one, and then two showed up.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately, he missed, or they got his wind or something. I don't think he killed one of them, but he held one in that same area. So
I got to practice my howling before I go back.
Yeah, truly, I just love predator hunting. Yeah. There's mixed reviews with folks. I think, bear and anything with fangs kind of have a whatever you call it, the Disney effect.
Yeah.
But predators are one of those things that I just love the call. I love the interaction. Mm-hmm. But also I feel like we're doing a favor to a lot of our game.
Yeah.
Our game, like deer and elk or caribou or
what we learned when we were visiting with Fish and Game down there, when you had to do the seal.
Yeah.
Was that, or it may have been there, or may have been with the guy we met, but that area, like you said, had been shut down to mm-hmm. hunting for sheep and for goats. Mm-hmm. And the predation issue, like it became a priority in their minds from a wildlife habitat to get the predation under control. The depredation got to the point where, the sheep and goat herds were massive.
Below a huntable population. And that is something that I think, maybe a non-hunter doesn't realize. Like, hunters, if there's not a huntable population, well, by all means, shut it down. Like, let's, I'm more, we're conservationists and hunters. We love to hunt, but only if it makes sense, Yeah.
Well, I think as we get older too, we appreciate that more and more. Like you've shared in the past, the appreciation for the animal, the appreciation for the adventure we get to go on, the appreciation for God's creation as a whole, the landscape, the animal, us, everything that goes into it. It just, as we mature, it's way more easy to go, well, I don't get to hunt here, but it's for a greater good as they're working through things.
Yeah, I was chatting with a friend this morning about the Shasta hike, right? And I said, hey, what are you doing? I don't have a climbing partner yet. And he goes, if there's a sheep on top of the mountain, I'd be more than happy to do it. But just to hike it? He's like, I don't really know if that's really what I want to do. And the seeking of adventure is what I'm getting at.
Yep.
I still want to do it because of the training involved. Mm-hmm. But that kind of, to back up, that was the lesson, that I learned from that Alaska trip. In the pursuit of that adventure, I learned that my back is a serious problem.
Yeah.
And that, over the course of the last 2 years, I've come to the realization that if I'm not preemptive, because it's a downward spiral at my age, I'm 45, every year it's not going to get better unless I am proactively doing things to strengthen it and keep it, at least if I can just keep it, status quo. Yeah. I'm not expecting a miraculous, I'm just 20 again, but
when you were 20 though, you'd done enough things physically, genetically, you had the right gifting, like you were running marathons.
Yeah, but I was pretty mean to my body. You know what I mean?
You were pushing all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
You had the energy, you had the drive. There was no mountain, no situation.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Some of the stories you told, no water, 10 miles in, some of the stuff was kind of wild.
You just push through. And and now I think, especially from that Alaska trip, because about day 8, I started feeling really good again. Day 7, I started feeling really good.
Well, it's interesting. So we packed out after we killed the wolf, and we glassed one more day, I think it was, or half day, and we decided, all right, we can see caribou 50, 60 miles away. We got to get some transportation.
As far as we could see. Who knows how far it was?
Yeah.
Long ways.
Yeah. So we hiked out in one, actually that was a pretty good hike. It was 5 miles. We did it in a couple hours to get out of there.
No, it was more like 7 or 8 on the ground. We were 5 miles as a crow flies.
That's true. That's
down.
true. Yeah. So I guess it's more than a couple hours, probably 4 hours getting out of there.
Backed out.
Came out heavy. And you were starting to feel good.
Yeah, my
darn good.
back was feeling good. I felt like, wow, I'm ready now.
Yeah, it was interesting. So we get out and then we get picked up. I don't remember how much food Scott brought us, but he brought us tremendous amount of food, and we just hammered it all. Between being cold and the hiking and everything else, the food we brought wasn't enough.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe how much food I ate.
Yeah.
And anyway, we got out of there. The next day we got wheels. Mm-hmm. We got a pickup. And All right, I gotta tell this story here. So we get like a couple miles out of town, and there's caribou everywhere. I mean, there's caribou in town.
Yeah, yeah.
So we get into a huntable area.
Or camp.
Yeah.
Camp.
Yeah. Camp. Okay.
It's got a store, but it's a camp.
Yeah, I mean, it's oil country. That's all
Yeah.
they're doing there. There's nobody lives there for fun.
Yeah, it's public land.
Yeah. So we get a couple miles or 10 miles, 20 miles, whatever it was up, and they're like, oh, there's a gravel pile right over there. We're going to go walk over there a mile and we're going to look. And this is where I coined a Mike mile is not 1 mile. Guys. It's 5 miles. So if he says we're going to go 1 mile somewhere, you got to calculate that as 5 miles.
You're not the first person to bring this to my attention.
So that's where it started to fall apart for me physically, though, on that trip. And I learned a couple really good lessons because we spotted that one caribou, and one afternoon we ended up doing 12 miles, I think it was.
Yeah, half of it you did barefoot.
Yeah, so big mistake. Do not, no matter how wet your boots are, do not replace them with some work boots just to have dry feet for a little while and then go walk with him. So like 4 miles in, my feet are all blistering up, and I did like, I think it was about 4 miles in socks out in the tundra. Yeah. Almost got a shot at a caribou. Drew on him twice.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Chased him through a lake.
And we were beyond 5 miles or right at the 5 mile.
We were at the 5 mile with no gun.
Yeah.
No
big
gun.
Caribou. Left the gun. Didn't think we'd even come close to going that
Thought we were
far.
going for a 1 mile hike and went 12 miles. But what it ended up happening to me, so my feet kind of got boogered up from that. Yeah. Even when I put my boots back on, I was still fighting blisters and stuff. But I also noticed about that same time my back started to hurt. And I didn't make the connection till later. But just the weird gait I was walking with from my feet hurting,
on the waterbed,
I believe started to foul up those stabilizer muscles in my back, because it was another day or so later, we actually got into real caribou. I think it was our first stalk. I think I killed that one.
I think it was our first real stalk.
Yeah, which that felt pretty cool.
Yeah.
Shot that caribou. That was a fun experience of just seeing an animal and crawling and seeing an animal and crawling more, and then getting to the point. Now I'd shot a lot that year, but it was the first time I'd had like the confidence with a bow to actually take like an 80-yard shot. Mm-hmm. And amazingly, practice. It worked out.
Oh, it was perfect. In fact, I got to interrupt that part of that story. So we glassed up 6 or 8 bulls.
Yeah.
A couple really nice bulls in there.
Yeah.
And then we had decided that they were going to cross down through this draw. So you went solo and crawled down and got in position to ambush them. Mm-hmm. And I'm hanging out and I see all of them trying to cross, and I'm kind of trying to not, I don't want to spook anything, so I'm not getting a good view of what's happening, but I think I can see the caribou, but I can't see you. And then all of a sudden you shoot, you kill that bull, and then what happened as we were working him up?
Oh gosh. Oh, that was funny.
Oh.
So after we had him in quarters, we're getting ready to put him on the packs, and we're still seeing caribou like a mile or 2 away. And by the way, I'd committed that the first caribou that was legal that I had a chance to shoot with a bow, I was going to shoot.
Probably day
7, 6.
Yeah, we've only got a couple days left.
Yeah, so I'd committed, so it wasn't anything like it was a bull. It was awesome with a bow.
Yeah.
But there were bigger bulls in that group, and I had to swallow my pride as I watched them go out of bow range. I'm like, all right, well, I fully committed. Okay, Lord, I fully committed to shoot the first one, and that's the first one, so we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But you're like, hey, what's that caribou doing on that ridge? Because he started acting goofy.
That's right. That? Yeah, he was just running around, and
so he's like a mile away. I don't know, 1,000 yards plus.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's running around, and then he reaches down, grabs something, puts his nose in the air, and is like, the only way to describe it was he was eating mushrooms. I mean, he was, and all these mushrooms or pieces of it would fall out, and he'd take off running again. Well, he ran up to 50 yards?
Yeah, 60 yards, I think it was. Came right by us. Like, so from 1,000 yards or so, when we really started paying attention to him, he does like this weird pattern and comes over. And the next thing we know, he's like at 100 yards and he's looking around at us. And then, he reaches down and eats something and runs a little bit closer. He runs right in. He's like doing this and looking at us like, what are you guys?
Yeah.
Much bigger bull. Yeah. We had no tags.
Yeah, we were out of tag. And then later, talking to a friend that works up there, he goes, oh, yeah. He was hallucinating.
Yeah, so
eating a hallucinogenic mushroom.
So that's a whole different. I don't know how we deploy that strategy in the future.
Yeah,
but that was kind of another 1 in a million kind of random experience.
Yeah.
But But we got that bull out. I don't know. We probably walked out a couple miles on that one. That one
Yeah,
wasn't very far.
wasn't too bad, but
And
good pack.
yeah. But lessons, like one of the biggest lessons I think I took out of this was one was the adventure. Like I didn't realize how much I crave just adventure and doing new things and experiencing new things. And that was so fulfilling on like just a, I don't know how to describe it, but on almost like a visceral level.
It was like a milestone of, hey, I'm in good enough shape now where
It was
this
so
is
many
within
things.
reach.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think we had two different lead ups, to this as far as lessons that we learned. Mine was I had to physically be in good enough shape to be able to go. And then I think what you've shared, and I'd like to hear more about what you've learned, is, even though you've been in really good physical shape pretty much your whole life and been able to hunt and do different things, at a certain point, a certain amount of effort has to continually get put in to be able to keep doing that. You're 45, I'm 35. I let myself get into kind of a train wreck situation when I was in my 20s working, had to claw out of it. You're going, full steam ahead, hunting, doing, and all of a sudden you hit a wall and you're having to work through it. So what was that wall you hit?
I sit too much. So working, selling real estate, you have a lot of computer work that needs to be done. And I just didn't realize that was causing my back to just, never get better. I originally had hurt my back building a pool. And I think I was about 30, right around 32, somewhere in there. But what I've learned from it now in the last 2 years is the proactive piece and, walking. I walk. I try to walk, 4,000 steps or 8,000 steps a day, 4 miles roughly. It takes me an hour and 10 minutes. That is huge, huge. I think we don't put enough emphasis on how important it is as humans to walk for your physical health. I think there really is something about the physical benefits, but also the mental. Just my stress level, my ability to navigate stressful situations, whether it's at work or helping clients, whatever, making decisions and communicating better. Having doing that physical activity, the walking, is a foundational piece. Okay, and then on top of that, more recently, setting a goal, something that's going to be a challenge, which Shasta's going to be a challenge.
Shasta's 8,000 feet of vert.
Yeah.
That's going to be a challenge.
It'll be a challenge. It's something and the challenge for me, just for everybody, the challenge for me is standing on my feet or being on my feet for that amount of time. I don't have a problem walking. I can walk for miles, but being on my feet for several hours, if I haven't lengthened my hamstrings or, by stretching and everything else. So what am I doing different? I'm stretching. My friend over in Texas, Brian, he showed me a stretching routine to help with your sacroiliac joint, SI. That's huge. The walking, and then now today, muscle failure, pull-ups. Not very many pull-ups. It didn't take long, but I was at muscle failure. But it's all part of it.
But the premise of so I'm just going to pick a random number, but at 28 years old, you probably could have run it or were running marathons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You were, climbing mountains,
Yeah.
running mountains, chasing elk, running with elk,
Yeah.
all of the above. But at a certain point, all of it catches up, and it goes from easy to all of a sudden, oh man, if I want to keep doing these things I really enjoy doing, it requires discipline, consistency, effort.
Yeah.
That really hit you in the last couple of years, that realization. And I think a lot of times that can be really defeating.
Oh, for sure. There was a point, the defeat, I'm glad you brought that up. Last March, my back was in a position where I literally couldn't even work for more than a couple hours, and I'd have to lay down, whether I was doing a press up on my belly or go lay on a heat pad just so that I could continue doing computer work. And there was a time where mentally I was like, man, I don't know where this is, what direction this is going. Like, is this where, I kind of sit on the sidelines now? Like,
Where the
with
fishing
hunting?
starts.
Yeah, this is where the fishing starts. That's right. I'm not ready for that. I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, I love the adventure. I say I love to hunt, but there will be a time when that'll all be done, and there'll be another chapter, another season to be into. But for now,
not when you're 45.
No, I'm thinking more like
85.
70.
I'm thinking 85.
Well, I might get a mule when I'm 70.
Okay. I'll get llamas.
That's something as I get older, I'm thinking more and more like, man, just having a mule where I could ride it around and elk hunt and have it packed for me. I keep meeting these guys. I have one friend that, he works too much, but I mean, he's in his 60s and still able to probably smoke me up the mountain,
But what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're learning that it's 12 months out of the year.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
What happens? What happens on when you're not consistent?
Oh, what happens to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my back locks up.
Back locks up.
I mean, over Christmas, threw it out twice over the break. Went and hunted Texas. Had a great time, but I was in pain, and I was I was in that 6 to 8 level where it's like, okay, I've got a flight. How's this going to work out? Having to sit for 4 hours or 3 hours.
So in my mind, a 6 level pain is when I start to struggle to think. Anything above 5, I'm struggling to
where I'm constantly trying to get comfortable. Just like, and there's nowhere is comfortable.
Yeah.
So there has to be a proactive piece.
Well, I think it's interesting as we learn, and you learn what's important in life. I guess the 3 pillars I always think about outside of, I guess that in many ways I live by is, faith, family, and the outdoors. Faith, like, that's a constant discipline. Like being in the Word, prayer, just having those conversations, it's a constant discipline. Family's a constant discipline. Your time, your attitude, your heart, all those different things. Well, the outdoors, if you love the outdoors, in order to be able to enjoy that, that's a constant discipline of physicality. I think I really appreciate the gift that I guess was given to me. The fact I love the outdoors is going to keep me healthier for a lot longer. And those are things I should be a good steward of my body and eat good food and exercise and do all that. But the fact I love the outdoors has given me this amazing carrot out there that says, if I do this, like, God was merciful to me because he knew I needed it. I needed that carrot to have the motivation to do these things. Like the amount of I don't know how many miles I hiked before we went to Alaska, but I wore those boots out and I didn't know it. And they started leaking when we were up there. But I don't know how many miles you got to hike to wear out a pair of Crispies, but I did it, didn't realize it. But that took consistent. I mean, I remember the first time I started hiking at Mountain of the Rogue, I didn't even make it halfway up and had to turn around.
I remember, yeah.
I run to the top of that now. Like the shift that happened in a period of 2.5 years, 3 years for me was an incredible experience to get to go on. And it was one I wouldn't wish on anyone because it was challenging. I wouldn't wish on anyone to be in that bad a shape physically. And by physically, like, I was still strong, but I did no cardio. I was out of shape. I had no flexibility. Like, I was basically a train wreck in the mountains. I could go to a gym and throw some weight around, but that was about it. So, that revelation of, like, it is hard to undo bad choices when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s. And I think, you were blessed in that you were so active all through those years that you have a great foundation, but now you got to be consistent.
Yeah.
For me, I had to, I had a foundation at 20, and then I had 10 years where I screwed it all up, 11 years. And then, coming back and recreating that foundation, I think over time, the physical lessons I took away from Alaska was I had to build a foundation and always maintain it, because everything in life erodes at that physical foundation. Like, even, I forget what year it is, but somewhere in your 30s, you begin to lose muscle no matter what. So unless you're resistance training and adding protein, like, even if you have to push to maintain or to grow muscle at that point, because otherwise if you sit around, you're going to lose. Yeah. So Anyway, just lessons. And I think another lesson from Alaska was time. And I think you're a pretty good one to, talk about that prioritization. Because I hear you when we set goals business wise or different things, you're like, no, I need this time. I'm going to set this time aside to go hunting in the fall. But what that means is the rest of the year, a bunch of other things got to happen. And I'd love to hear kind of your thought process with family and work.
Sure.
As you set this priority out there,
Yeah.
but what all else has to fall into place?
Well,
Because you're still married, your kids still like you, your clients don't fire you, like people still like you. So obviously you're doing something.
well, I don't remember where this came from, but I think it was one of my close friends had mentioned it, but there's a savings account that doesn't have any money in it, and it has time in it. And I'm not saying I've got this figured out, but I think there's part of the year you have to constantly deposit into this savings account, whether it's going on a vacation or,
You're talking about with your family.
with my family.
Yeah.
And my wife especially. And you fill this, you deposit into the savings account just so that you can have this massive withdrawal from it in the fall.
Yeah.
Then, and that's the time with family. Then you have business. The analogy, maybe you said this, it's a snowball. You build a giant snowball and you keep it rolling down, keep it moving, and it just slowly melts away if you don't constantly keep pouring onto it. And so hunting season is where, the season of the melting snowball. And hopefully you still have,
Well, that's what I've seen the last couple of years is your intentionality about coming out of the fall with at least with maintaining a similar level through where it's not just you disappear for a period of time, but I see the benefits from your intentionality in that with your with your business. So.
Yeah, there was a learning curve. For example, with my clients, I feel like it's very important to be completely forthright and transparent that, hey, I'm going to be gone from this time to this time, but if you have an emergency, here's who you call. Or call me, and if you don't hear from me within this amount of time, and I'm not saying a large amount, I'm saying a day, and that there's some tactic that has to be implemented in order to be able to.
When you're leaving somebody, watching your email, watching messages, doing the different things, someone who's capable and knows what's going on. I mean, it's in no way, shape, or form, you're dropping. But I think it's interesting to me how you come back.
Well, but that's just it. I've thought about this so much that that's who I am. Like that's what's interesting.
When you come back, the day you walk back in the office, or the day from one of those adventures, like you're 6 foot tall, 6'2" that day. You walk in the door, you're like
I feel great.
Yeah, amazing. And it's a refresh. My wife, I overheard her say the other day, a couple months ago, to a friend of hers who was like, how do you put up with like Chris being gone for these different trips? Like I don't really understand, that why is that not a problem for you? And she goes, well, one, I've adjusted, our life that, I know this is important to him, but two, I've started to learn how much of a benefit it is to him. And I really like the guy who comes back. And I'm like, oh man, I need to protect that. I need to make sure I'm always coming back with that refreshed, intentionality in life. Yeah. And she recognizes that, and I realize that might be different for different couples or things, but God blessed me with a woman who cares deeply about our whole family, and knows that when I come back refreshed, it's good for everyone. And I agree. Like we definitely have other times of the year and things that are very intentional about depositing into kids and marriage and so on and so forth. So I think those are the two things I think were just really, I came away with from Alaska: physical lessons and time. Like realizing that, if we're gonna, when I'm 45, 55, 65, I still want to be doing these things. What do I got to do today? And then being consistent and disciplined enough to do it. And the only thing that would zap my ability to do those things faster than physically not being able to do it would be as if it caused strife in my marriage or with my kids, because that would be a no-go for me instantly. Yep. It would not be worth doing any of that if it did cause that. So, protecting those two things to be able to keep doing that. And I guess the overarching part of all that is, is faith, is honoring God in that stuff. If I begin to become obsessed with something, if I begin to, my pride is all wrapped up in all these different things, those are warning signs that I hope, the people that hold me accountable in life will say, hey, Chris, I think you should think about this. So anyway.
Yeah, for sure. No, and same here. I mean, definitely, I hope that my friends would let me know as well, like, hey, you're dropping the ball. I think that's a good friend, somebody that's willing to say that to you.
Yeah.
So
anyway, well, anything else to add to the conversation?
That was fun reminiscing about that hunt and the adventure. I mean, just I can say last night I was thinking about a September from a few years ago, and I cherish those opportunities to get out there, and that's one maybe for a future time to kind of recap, is this September that I'm thinking of, where there were so many things that happened. It was just constant, either hunting elk or packing elk or running away from a fire, or
I remember that. Yeah, you told that story. That's good.
That was a good
That's
time.
A really good story.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about it next time, but yeah, no, that was great thinking about those memories in Alaska. I'm thankful to be able to have gone. Hopefully we can make it up there again here.
Well, we talked about it. If August rolls around and we happen to be doing really well this year and happen to have the free time.
Yeah, we don't need that many days.
Yeah, we're going.
5.
Yeah.
5 days.
Last second.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm definitely, Alaska's 100% on my calendar though for 26. And then I think a moose hunt. I really want to make that happen before 30. Sometime in that period of time, whether it's me and Marshall, some combination. Like I want to chase a moose in the worst way. Yeah. I don't know why. I know you want to chase a sheep in the worst way.
Yeah, I like eating moose.
Yeah. I'm thinking it's got to happen. So anyway,
good.
I just encourage everyone to, think about what you need to do to, stay physically consistent, to do the things you want to do and protect your time and your relationships so that you're able to do those things. So anyway, thanks for joining us on Wild Rivers today.